you for having me.
Yeah, so I'll read your bio, your official bio,
Okay.
and then we will get into the question. Deborah Henry is a Malaysian beauty pageant title holder who was crowned Miss Universe Malaysia 2011 and Miss Malaysia World 2007. She was also placed in the top 16 at Miss World 2007. Born to Malaysian, Indian and Irish descent parents, Deborah started modeling at the age of 15 in London. She holds a bachelor degree in political science and economics from the University of Queensland, Australia. Deborah spent much of her teenage years on a bullet train to stardom, journeying from Modelville to university, beauty pageants, charities, and the media forefront, becoming the woman she is today. Miss World and Universe Malaysia, model, TV host, actress, MC, humanitarian aid and ambassador, and co-founder of On Charity.
That's a long list.
You've lived 40 lives, man. Very much involved in the humanitarian world, Deborah co-founded Fugee School, a non-profit charity body that provides basic education to some 90 Somalian refugee children. She is also a World Vision child rights advocate. She speaks for the Harper's Bazaar, the Pink Project PSA 2010. Henry also became the ambassador for Yes, I Can campaign, an educational awareness and advocacy campaign for the prevention of unplanned and unwanted pregnancy in Malaysia. In 2013, Henry was included in Forbes' list of top Asian philanthropists. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I hope to offer you some wise words today.
The expectation is there.
It is.
It is. Okay, so to start off with, you have been, like I said, you've lived 40 lives, and you have done so many things. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing? How did you manage to do all of this and end up being a co-founder of a charity and all that?
Well, I think it wasn't my upbringing was pretty conventional. Grew up in Malaysia, spent all my years here except for 4 years when I was modeling in London for a year and university in Australia. So it was pretty much conventional. I think my parents were of the idea that we should experience the world, see the world, and we were very privileged to be able to travel a lot. And I think especially today we talk about open your eyes, open your mind, see the world. And that was something that we grew up with, cultural differences, experiencing different cultures, different ways of living. And I think that was something, that balance that I have in me, of being a little bit of this and a little bit of that, has certainly benefited now. But just moving on to like when I was, after university, I came back, and by then I was already modeling for about 6 years. I started modeling when I was 15, and I never had a conventional job. So I don't know what it's like to earn a paycheck every month of a fixed amount. I don't have that security. Every month I don't even know what I'm going to earn sometimes. But that was the unconventional part for me, where once I graduated and started working, it was the beauty pageants, it was emceeing, it was hosting travel shows, it was hosting TV shows. So I never got trapped into the conventional sense of that job, that security, that comfort zone. I always pushed myself and did things which were, everything was a new challenge, everything was a new hurdle, and it was overcoming those things. It was achieving it and getting over the hurdle and being like, yes, I've done it. And then you get more confident, you get more strength to be able to do the next thing. And it always becomes, it's more exciting then. You have this sort of zest for challenges, almost. So I think for me, now I'm 30, and I'm not used to the typical conventional style of things. It's always something that is different, it's challenging, it's unique. And yes, fear does exist, but it's not enough to stop and inhibit you from doing something new or trying something different.
Yeah. So I guess there's a misconception that because you are a model and you went on to live the model and beauty pageant life, things are easy, and you have the VIP treatment for everything. Tell us a little bit about some of these challenges that living an unconventional life.
Well, I'm not going to lie. The fashion industry, entertainment industry, modeling, it's hugely privileged. It's a very opulent, indulgent industry. You get pampered. People tell you how good you look all the time. You have your fans out there. So it can blow a lot of, it can really, your feet can basically leave the floor and you can be flying high. And that's when the problem starts, because then you think, wow, I'm untouchable, I'm like a goddess. fast, and then, but you're not, you know, and then someone pops the balloon and you go, whoo, and you fall down. So that, it's certainly hugely privileged, but it's a reality then as well to keep your feet on the ground. And to talk about the fashion industry, modeling, beauty pageants, let's just be honest here, it is a superficial industry. It is superficial, and when you're in it, 100% in it, and everything, your whole being is reliant on that, your sense of self-worth is question mark. How you feel about my looks, everything is always about my physical. You know, I didn't get that job because I was not tall enough, I wasn't skinny enough, they didn't like my look. And you have to learn to take it not personally. So you're being criticized physically for the way you look. I didn't choose this, I was born like this. But don't get offended. You know, and then so you grow very thick skin about how people judge and people have comments. So it is very frivolous. And I felt, for me, I felt that I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't able to show myself like, but I'm more than this. I have a brain. Like, oh wow, beauty with brains. How many times have you read that in the newspapers? She's not just a pretty face, ... She's got a brain, you know? And it's like, you almost learn to accept that as being the norm. You know, you have people say it to your face, and it's like, yeah, I have a brain, yeah, I'm smart, you know? It's like, haha, compliment, you know? But in fact, it's really quite offensive to have someone say that to you. So yeah, I just felt that I felt that I wasn't being challenged, and I wasn't being able to reach my potential of who I am. And then I think that's why a lot of girls, a lot of women in the industry, at some point because typically models, you start off very young. You start off before you even know who you are. And you're exposed to so much. When I was so young, I was like, drugs, parties, things that you see and experience and you have the opportunity to be part of is just so, it's not normal. You know, it's not age appropriate. And how do you deal with that? So yeah, I think for me, I just felt I was reaching a point where I was not challenged. I needed to do more, and that would led me then to other things. But of course, saying that, I can't say I hate it, because I'm networking amazing. I met so many different people across the industries. So I had so many contacts that I could reach out to, opportunities, for me to then move on to the next thing. So at that point, it's about taking advantage of all these things that you have. It's just, I think, unfortunate that a lot of women, they're not able to then see, you know?
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit, and so there's two things I always say I don't put up with. One is racism, and second is sexism. And especially in Malaysia, people often make sexist comments without actually realizing it.
Yes.
For example, you see a woman, and your first comments, you can engage with the person, but your first comment is like, oh, she's really beautiful. Oh yeah, and she sounds intelligent. So people don't realize that is a sexist comment. Does it bother you that, or do you think that, why do Malaysians do that? Why do looks come first before?
I mean, how many of us have been victims of this, where you see someone who you've not seen in a long time, they're like, wow, you're looking quite healthy now, put on some weight. Like, nice, you put on a bit better. Like, last time I saw you so skinny. And you're like, you know, is that what someone says to you and they've not seen you for like 6 months? I don't know, I feel a little bit offended.
Yeah.
So, but I think we get used to it. And I going back to your comment about people making those statements, that's what we're socialized into being that way. It's, in a way, it's not our fault. Yeah. We're taught, everything around us, the media, everything around us makes us think that that's okay to say things like that. And then we just perpetuate it, and it's normal. I don't think people mean it in an evil, harsh way. I think they just don't think about it. And they don't think about, well, how's that going to affect this person? Are they going to feel insulted? Do they feel hurt? Yeah. Maybe they have insecurities. Am I going to give them a sleepless night now because of my comment? And like I said, for me, I grow a thick skin. I laugh it off, ha ha ha. But inside, I'm like, what an idiot. You know, it's kind of, to be honest, it reaches that point where you just think, I would never say that to someone, but it's okay for them to say it to me. Yeah. So it is, the sexism is there in the workplace. And if someone is angry with you, I think even in the corporate sector, they can start making it personal. Yes. And for women, it becomes insulting your physique, insulting you as a woman.
Yes.
You know, they cross a line which under no circumstances should you cross.
Yes.
Keep it professional, keep it about the job.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, women very often tend to be the victims of, then it's like, look at her, she looks like a man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you look at, you know, very, I don't know, to me, these things are, nah, no go. I've got a zero tolerance policy for things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar. And some of the things that, you know, so I have spent the last 10 years overseas, and coming back, being exposed to a lot of this stuff, really kind of give me a little bit of a shock sometimes. And it's strange being on the other side, because it seems like for everyone it's very normal to see a woman as their looks first before the content of the brains and stuff like that. And for me, I take it as a shock, but everyone's just like, meh, it's what it is.
Yeah.
So I always felt like maybe I'm the odd one out here, and do I have to say something? Should I say something? Should I not say something? Maybe it's normal. Maybe I'm the abnormal one. And yeah. So you have volunteered a lot with charities, and also founded a charity as well. How did you get started? Or, you know, how did you start volunteering and stuff?
I think, I don't actually know why, but when I was like 14, 15, and I was at that stage in school where we have to think about the subjects you want to sit for our O-levels. And I was thinking about everything, and I just couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to do, what I wanted to become. And I'm like, who has to decide when they're 15? I mean, it's young, you know? And I was thinking, and the things that resonated with me were, I remember two words. It was a sense of injustice and greed. These were two key words that at that age were like, I think it's unfair. Certain things in the world are just unjust, and it's just not right. And the second part was the idea of greed. We want more, we have insatiable appetites for things in life, and we will take over someone else's, at the expense of someone else's good fortune. So those are two key things that really affected me. And so I took a year out, which I think is not a bad thing for parents who have children who want to take a year out before university. It's not a negative thing. It helps them find themselves. And I took a year out before university. I moved to London to model. And in that time there, I was modeling, I was living alone without my parents. I loved it. But it gave me a lot of time to think about this whole charitable, non-profit sort of social issues idea that I was thinking about. And then that really solidified my desire to then pursue that for my degree. And so like you said earlier, then I went on to do political science and economics. And I think that was, at that point, it cemented, this is something that I want to be part of. So coming back to Malaysia after that, it was the option of United Nations, I wanted to work for UN, or somehow I ended up joining a beauty pageant. I don't know how. It was a very last minute decision, and then before I knew it, I was like, oh, Miss Malaysia, and then, but you know, life is a funny way of taking you to where you want to be. You think it's this path, but you know, I believe God has sometimes another different path for you. The destination is the same, but the journey is different. And I ended up, when I won Miss Malaysia, World Vision, which is an international humanitarian organization, they were the beneficiary. And I ended up becoming their ambassador, their spokesperson. So until today, all these years later, I still have a very strong relationship with them. And I've traveled the world visiting a lot of their humanitarian projects. So that was a crucial part. And then I realized, hey, I don't have to work for someone to do what I want to do. I don't have to join an organization. I can do it on my own.
Yeah.
And that was very empowering for me because I saw results. And especially if you're in any non-profit work, it's very hard to see results sometimes. You get caught up in the bureaucracy of it all and the red tape where you feel like you're not even doing good. You sometimes feel that, what am I even doing? What am I contributing? And by ending up getting involved directly in charities, I was able to achieve that. Yeah. But it was a long process, like you said. I volunteered in the soup kitchens when I was in Brisbane, Australia. I came back, I worked at Yayasan Chowkit with Dr. Tini. I actually stuck my nose into all different sectors, and then I realized, okay, I think I like this. And I always think it's very important, going back to this idea of passion, working at your passion. It's so good to play around, experience everything, and then kind of come back and go, okay, this is what I want to do. Because charity work or non-profit work is not saying everyone has to do everything. You've got to pick a cause that is close to your heart. Yeah. Whether it's animal rights, women's rights, children's rights, anything.
Yeah. And so what's the ones that you found?
I ended up working with children in education. I'm not that I would ever want to be a teacher. If anyone's a teacher here, hats off, because it is one of the hardest jobs ever. The amount of preparation you have to do for your classes is, my God, it's hours and hours and hours, and kids can be really like little, like, you know, you want to handcuff them to the table sometimes. No, just kidding. We don't do that at Fugee School. No, but it's difficult. It's sometimes a very thankless job, but hugely rewarding when you see the impact that you have with the kids.
Yeah. So why children? I mean, it's a pretty obvious question, but I'd like to hear from you. Why children, and what about children?
I think the cause found me. It goes back to 2008 when what was I doing? I was asked by UNHCR to host an in-house documentary for them. And we went to 4 refugee families living in Malaysia at that time. One was Somali, 3 were from Myanmar, various ethnic tribes in Myanmar. And we interviewed these families, the children. And I remember just going to each of the homes, they were living in very poor conditions. And I couldn't believe that this was Malaysia. Maybe I was living in a bubble, I don't know, but I couldn't believe that I was seeing this, and these were, I don't look at things through a racial lens or a religious lens. I don't look, Chinese or English or American or Hindu or Christian. I think that to me is I looked at it from a very humanist point of view. It was humanity. And I saw these kids in our country and in these conditions, and that really affected me. And I remember when I walked away from one of the homes that day, and I said to myself, I cannot just walk away from this. I cannot be the person that just says, oh, kasian, give them 50 ringgit and then leave.
Do you want to paint a picture of what you saw? Because I think a lot of people here have not experienced that.
Refugees, firstly, in Malaysia, don't live in camps. It's called urban refugees. So they live amongst us in the shop lots near us, Jalan Imbi, Pudu, Gombak, various areas. And they live amongst us and they make do with what they have. So you have situations where you have 2 or 3 families cramped into a small apartment. They have to share a lot of their resources, food. Money goes towards basic necessities, food, water, shelter, and a little bit for medical expenses. And that's really what I saw that day. And it shocked me because I saw children, this family, 4 siblings, aged 10 to 14 years old. They could barely read and write. And I'm not talking about English, even in their own language, Somali, barely read or write, and 10 years old. How are these people going to survive? Very often we talk about food, water, and shelter as the basic necessities for survival. Without these, you will die. But I'm of the belief that without an education, you will die a very slow and painful death. Alive today without an education, with that tool, that knowledge that you have, what are you going to do? We're setting up our children for failure. And that was something that I could not be okay with. And that was really it. It was not just so much the physical conditions of it, it was that, my gosh, these children cannot continue to live like this. Somebody has to do something about this. And I don't care what the status is, but they are in my country, and I'm going to help. It was very much that.
And they're human just like me. Yeah.
They're human just like me. What good is it? Malaysia, Somalia, whatever country, they're here right now. And if we all know that if somebody is left idle, they end up creating negativity. And so don't blame them when that happens. Solve the problem at the root before that happens. And that was it.
So you touched a little bit on this. Malaysia is not a signatory of the UN Refugee Convention.
Yes.
What are the implications for a lot of these refugees?
Yeah, so our government, unfortunately, has not ratified the Convention on the Rights of Refugees. So essentially, refugees have no legal status in this country. Our government is very much doing a goodwill measure by allowing UNHCR to function in Malaysia. And UNHCR, for all the criticisms that United Nations gets globally, without them, the situation would be many, many times worse. What they do here is facilitate thousands upon thousands of refugees, process them, interview them, they register them, and then they put them in the running to be resettled. So Malaysia is not the end point for any refugee. Malaysia is just a transit point. And I think as of now, registered with UN, there are over 150,000 refugees. Those are the ones registered with their blue cards. There are still thousands more who are lining up to be registered. And globally, as it stands today, this is the worst refugee situation the world has ever experienced. Globally, 60 million people around the world are living as displaced peoples, which means within their own borders, or living as refugees. And because of obviously the crisis in Syria right now, UNHCR's resources and funding is being stretched. And so they're having to dedicate money towards certain concerns. And of course it affects countries like Malaysia. It affects how much support that they're also able to give us. And it puts a huge strain. And it isn't anyone's fault. It's the unfortunate situation of what happens. Many people I find in Malaysia, many people do not, and I don't know if we can call it ignorance, they're naive, but many people, and maybe they just don't know. They've never had the opportunity, but many people do not understand what a refugee is, who a refugee is. There's a very nice quote that I think sums it all up. It says, "Refugee, go home." And the next line is, I would if I could. Refugee, go home, I would if I could. And that's really saying that nobody chooses to become a refugee. Nobody says, yes, yay, life as a refugee is better. No one wants that. It's being forced to flee your home, everything you know, because if you stay, you will get murdered. If you stay, you won't be able to feed your children. If you stay, you will have no job. A bomb may land on your house. It's being forced to relocate with very often very little, and coming to a country where, you know what, you're not welcome. You're an outsider, you're an alien, you don't speak the same language, you don't eat the same food, nobody wants you. And you're going from being a stranger in your home to then being an alien in the foreign land. And I did a talk last week with the representative for UNHCR in Malaysia, and the title of that seminar was Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire. Which is worse? Which is better? Frying pan or fire? I think they're quite equally bad, right? I think you'd probably die in both situations. So both are just as hot as the other. So you're jumping out of the frying pan, but you're jumping into an equally difficult situation. At least in Malaysia, it's funny, just today I was talking to some of my students, and the older students, and they were saying, Malaysia's, I love I saw Twin Towers for the first time, it's so peaceful, I like the people here, it's such a nice country. You are so, and he was talking to the students, Taylor students, he was saying, you are so privileged to have access to education, that you can come, you can learn, you can become something. And that was his perspective of this country. But sadly, they're very blessed in this country, but sadly they're not fully welcome.
So let's talk about refugee, because again, one of my passions as well. I work in this sector for the last many years now, and I've seen the sector from a high up lens. We have solved global poverty. We not completely solved it, but we have halved global poverty in the last 10 years. We have increased access to clean water and sanitation to hundreds of millions of people. We have put millions and millions of children in schools. We have built millions of libraries around the world. We have pretty much on track for the Millennium Development Goals, which is a lot of what we track our world progress on. But when it comes to human movement or refugees and asylum seekers, that's one thing that's getting worse and worse. And there's a lot of misconception about refugees. People either see them as, they just come to Malaysia because they make better money here, Or people from Bangladesh, they just come here because they can make better money here. There's a lot of misconception leading to a lot of discrimination,
yes.
And also a lot of racism as well. So do you want to tell us some of this biggest myth about refugees that the general public think? And it's not only in Malaysia, it actually happens all around the world when it comes to myth of refugees.
Firstly, it's, there are people with hugely different cultures that are coming here. I mean, let's bring it back home. Let's talk about the migrants here. So not refugees, these are a lot of the Indonesians and Bangladeshis who come here to build our buildings and do things like, jobs like that perhaps maybe many Malaysians can't do. And you know, we can label them, was it that DDD thing, that dangerous, dirty, and difficult, or something that was talked about. And we need to also understand their culture. So many of these people, we expect them to come and understand how we live, but let's be honest, a lot of these people may come from, they may not even have a high school education. They may have come from a village. They may have not seen the development that exists in our country. And so it's very presumptuous of us to assume that they know our ways. So I think it's also, it does necessitate a level of understanding and cross-cultural communication. You know, you need to understand where the other person is coming from. Coming back to refugees, refugees are not economic migrants. They do not come to earn money. They come to have a better life, to save their families. So that's a huge difference between them. And a lot of the refugees that are in Malaysia, so thousands upon thousands of them, are very capable to get jobs, are very capable to contribute, to be productive members in our society, to work, to earn an income, to provide for their family. The question is, can we allow for that to happen? You know, is there a way, is there some sort of a blueprint we can come up with that says, while you are a refugee in Malaysia, there is some form of a job that you can do so that you can support your family. But of course, like anything in the world, any system that exists, whether it's legal, whether it's illegal, is always open to exploitation.
Yes.
You know, and we can talk about pick any subject. We can say that people exploit it. Am I right? So when it comes to this, of course people exploit it, you know, and it's not just Malaysia, it's all around the world. If there are good people who are refugees, there are also bad people. I mean, there are also people who are refugees who maybe are not the nicest people. That doesn't mean we get to paint everyone with the same brush, you know? So it's making that distinction as well. Even in Malaysia, there are many people who, everyone has the UN blue card as a means of protection, but in Malaysia, there are some people who, what do we do very well at? We're very good at piracy, right? So we make fake cards. And then when people show fake cards, of course they're going to be detained for questioning. So, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of the good guys get caught up in that because a few bad apples have been carrying fake cards. So this is a very real problem that exists in all industries, I think, globally. But it's important to be educated, and I think when the whole boat issue happened with the Rohingyas, the death camps and all those people who are being smuggled on the boats, as horrible and horrific as it was, and for a lot of us in this industry, we knew this was happening for years. But for the society, it was a shock to them because so many Malaysians I was speaking to were saying, I can't believe this is happening on our land, in Malaysia, that these death camps exist. It's inhumane, it's barbaric, human trafficking at its worst, and it's happening on our soil. So it was a huge eye-opener and awareness for a lot of us. But it all starts with a conversation like what we're having now, because you don't know what you don't know. It's when you are empowered with the information. Now that you know, what are you going to do? And that would be the challenge that would be put out to you.
Yeah. So there's another myth about refugees in Malaysia is that Malaysia cannot afford to take in refugees. Is that true?
Look, the refugees are here, and they're not being expelled from the country. There are many jobs which they could get. I don't think they're stealing Malaysians' jobs. There are a lot of refugees work in the informal sector now, and that has its own problems because it leads to exploitation. Employers will employ them and not pay them, or pay them half and abuse them. So a lot of issues there. But there are jobs that there is a demand basically, and refugees are a supply. You know, but meanwhile, we are also bringing in migrant workers, right? We wanted to bring in how many million migrant workers? So
3 million. Something?
So it's also, well, can we? I'm not one of those people who say no, our government has to sign the convention. I'm not asking for that. I'm not even going that far. I'm saying, look, they are here. There are thousands of them here. Many of them have some skills, are somewhat educated, and can we not think of a solution? You know, going back to what you said, we've solved so many of the problems, global problems, or we're solving so many of the global problems. You know the band U2? The lead singer Bono, he's very much an activist, and he made a statement once, a few years ago. He said, The world today has everything it needs to solve problems. We have the resources, we have the technology. I mean, never have we had so much technology, you know? Technology, resources, the know-how to solve all the problems. The only thing we lack is the political will, and sometimes just the will, the human will. And that is a challenge that we're faced with. Not because we can't, it's not impossible. It's the will of humans to do it. And so sitting down and going, look, we have these people here, they're not going to be here forever, but can we find a way to make them more productive in our society? And actually seriously look, will it impact us negatively? Is it going to be a positive? How can we allow certain sectors for them to work in and assist that without putting a burden on our country's economy or the government? Do you know what I mean? That's what it needs. It needs stakeholders to sit at the table and have a real conversation.
Yeah. So let's talk about Fugee School. So you started Fugee School because?
Because I believe all children have the right to an education. Yes?
Yes.
Sometimes it really is that simple.
So you have 90 children now?
We've had, since the beginning, we've been alive for about 6 years now. We've had over 200 students have come through our doors, of which currently we have about 120 students. And our students come from mainly Somalia, but we have students from Syria, Yemen, Palestine, Nigeria, Kenya, stateless children. And their ages range from 4 years old, so we have preschool all the way up to about 20.
So tell us about the school. Is it like a typical classes, you know, and...
We try to be structured, but it's a beautiful thing because we're off the grid, so to speak. We can do practically whatever we want. So for any of the teachers out there, anyone in education, it's like, yay, it's your dream, because we have fun coming up with the syllabus. We have fun giving them activities. We look at it in this capacity, especially when dealing with refugee children, because they've missed out on chunks of their learning. A lot of their formative years of learning they've not had it. And so they're coming to us with gaps here and gaps there, and we're like, how do we play catch up? How do we play catch up with these children and have an amount of accelerated learning? So we look at it as this. We've got the academic side of things, we've got creative and physical side, and then we also have life skills, personal development. Now we believe, obviously you need to know that 2 + 2 = 4. Knowledge is important. These are the tools that you need. However, creative and physical is important to express yourself, to understand how to articulate. If I have something to say, how do I say it? How do I say it so you can understand what I'm saying without offending you, you know, while respecting your rights to an opinion? That aspect of things. And of course, personal development. And we find this to be so interesting because all of the other parts are good, but it's not enough because these kids, they've lost their identity. They don't know who they are. They've suffered traumatic experiences going through war, relocation, running away. So much stuff that children should never be exposed to. And they're not going to just get over it like that, just because now they're in a school and you're teaching them 2 + 2. It needs more than that. So we're trying to invest in them, in their core of who they are, a sense of self-worth, a sense of value, a sense of confidence. And we do that very much through public speaking, through expressing themselves. I have students who sit here and would talk to a crowd like this, and they have the confidence to do it. Many of you here may be like, I'm not going to public speak, you know? So it's very much giving them a sense of confidence that I can do this. What I have to say, what comes out of my mouth matters. And I'm going to believe it. Because we all know sometimes when you believe something with your heart and soul, it will come into being, you know? You believe it into happening. And in a way, we're getting the kids to move down that path. And my thinking is that these children, I don't know where they're going to go after this. They may leave, go to America, Canada, God knows where. And I don't know what their lives are what's in store for their lives. But when you have certain values and qualities inside of you that you hold on to, and you've built it and you've strengthened it, no matter what your circumstances and environment, you can survive. You can survive. And this is not just them, this is all of us. You can survive. You can pull through, no matter how difficult the situation is. And that's what Fugee School is about. It is education. We also, I'll go into a bit about some of the certification that we do, but so importantly, it's personal development. Because without that, they're just not going to be able to function and be responsible members of society. Do you want me to talk a bit about the certification side? Yeah, another big issue with refugee schools in Malaysia is that because we're off the grid, we don't have access to formal exams. So there's no like PMR, there's no O levels, there's none of that grading that gets them certified. So what we are trying to do now is we do use a proper syllabus, and we do grade them according to that. But we're trying to get them cert, so when they get resettled, they can show their new school, say, look, I have this. This is what I've done. And so we go, thank God for the internet, because so many educational resources online. We can go online, we do MOOC courses. They're short-term. They offer the youth a sense of satisfaction, accomplishment. I've done it, yes. They get a certificate. And we're also doing, I think it's called Coursera? Coursera. They also offer short courses and very interesting courses like on climate change and stuff. And that's the stuff that we want to teach our kids. We want to make them very conscientious citizens of the world. And I always say to these refugee children, I say to them, do not be a victim. We have this thing in the school, we say victim to victor. Do not be a victim of your situation. Look at this in a positive way. You're Somali or you're Syrian. You've lived there, you've grown up there, then you lived in Saudi for a few years, now you're in Malaysia, and soon you're going to be living in Canada or America. Look at all the experiences that you've had. You've been exposed to so many cultures, and you can take all the good from all these cultures and take this on board. This can be your victor. And to turn it around and see it as an advantage. And like when they do these online courses, it's the same thing. With Coursera, they're able to do these short courses. They have a sense of victory when they complete the courses. They get certification. And it all helps us in the process of giving the kids more a solid educational background. We're also considering maybe offering like the O-level mock exams next year, because the issue we face now is a lot of our younger kids are fine, but for the students who turn 17, 18 and they're like, what's next? Yeah. And that's a huge problem because they can't work, and you're 18 years old, what are you going to do? You can't just come to Fugee School till you're like 25. There needs to be the next step, right? Yep. So that is to be honest, that is our challenge right now. I mean, do these kids want to go and work as wash cars or become a mechanic? No, that's not their goal. That's not their dream. I can't force them to become a mechanic. They don't want to, you know. So I've got to look at their needs and be able to provide solutions or opportunities that will suit their drems. Yeah,
I was just about to ask, like, what happens to these children once they leave Fugee School? So I guess that they either get resettled permanently somewhere else, where they can go on to pursue things that have rights and in a legal way as well. But what if for those who are still waiting for their status or be relocated?
So just to let you know, we don't know how long resettlement takes. It can be a few years, it can be a decade. I have many students who've been with me since the beginning, so they've been in Malaysia for 7-8 years. It's a long time. And they don't know when they're going to get resettled. Sometimes you just get a phone call. They're like, okay guys, you've been resettled to Wisconsin, in the middle of like winter. And they have 2 weeks to pack all their stuff, to buy some winter clothes, and they fly off to Wisconsin. It's literally like that. Very sudden. So that's how resettlement works for them. Just to talk about the teenagers who reach that age, it's unfortunate, but we have lost many students. Especially a lot of the boys and girls, especially in this community, the boys just drop out. You're 18, you want to hang with your friends, you want to hang out and be cool and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know, they just don't come. And we try, but what can we do? Sometimes, like I say, it's a very difficult situation for them to be in, and who am I, who are we to be like forcing them? It's a very hard life. And then you have girls who end up getting married very young. They get arranged marriages with say for instance, the recent story was one of our students, she was set to be married to this Somali man, but he's resettled in Australia. So by her marrying him, guess what? She gets a green card into Australia. So it's killing two birds with one stone. She's getting married, she doesn't have to study and get a job anymore because now she's a wife. Not sure what that means, but but also very importantly, and we cannot what's the word? We cannot play down the importance of this. That she gets legal status. You know, she gets a legal status to become a citizen of a country in Australia, and that means a lot. And I can't disagree. You know, I can't disagree. But it's very sad because a woman. It's sad as a woman should not have to feel the need to get married to improve her status, so that she can study, so that she can have a better life. You know, the girls, they should at least finish school, get an education, get skills at something, and not feel that now marriage is my solution. And very often, the marriages are not ideal. You know, they're not ideal. So what do? You just have to, you just hope and pray that it's something that, something terrible is not going to come from it.
Yeah. How many of you guys work with refugees or plan to work with refugees? Great. Do you want to quickly shout out what you guys are working on?
Well, we run Thrift on Wheels. It's a mobile thrift store, basically. So we're trying to solve fashion overconsumption. At the same time, we have met with victims of human trafficking, refugees, and all that. But we are being told that it's not legal to hire them. So that's the problem that we're facing right now.
It's a setback for us because we are a great believer that if you give education to someone, it propels a nation.
Yes.
They have a skill anyway.
Over the other side, we're looking forward to employ underprivileged mothers, single mothers as well. And how do you do the damage control over the other side when they're grown up? I mean, leaving refugees aside, to people who are capable enough, but they don't have enough skills.
And it's not legal to hire them when they have the skill and we have the money to employ them.
So to touch on the legal aspect, yes, you're right, it is not legal. However, many big and small companies do work with refugees. I know so many people who have them working in their stores, and they pay them, you know, some refugees can actually have bank accounts, or they pay them in cash. But of course, there is always a risk. So it depends on whether you are willing to take the risk. But like I say, there are many big, we won't name names, but many companies that small, big ones. So it's a matter of, you have to look at it as in, you are willing to take the risk, but you take safety precautions. So someone's always with the person, they're always in a certain safer environment, where certain areas you go to, for sure you're going to get checked, your card, you're going to be asked to give your card. So you avoid areas like that. You know, certain things like that. So certainly there are ways around it. And to be honest, UNHCR actually plays a role in getting refugees jobs. There was a recent bakery that actually was hiring refugees. So I wouldn't be too afraid if I were you. I would try it out, because a lot of there are many initiatives with UNHCR, and normally when UNHCR does something, then it's like, okay, I can do it too. You know, so yeah, I would be willing to take the risk. And your second part about, you said working with them, the skills, was that?
Underprivileged adults.
Yeah.
At times, just today we received Facebook posts actually about a guy who is handicapped over his right leg. He was being hospitalized for more than 2 months, and now he's unemployed due to the hospitalization.
Yes.
Because he was currently attached to a call center.
Okay.
Yeah, so we wanted to hire him.
So what was the issue?
For adults who are grown-ups, how do you provide them all of these skills that they need to go further, like to join the workforce, basically, something like that, not just physically disabled.
I think so it's basically the question was for adults who, you know, you want to provide them with a job, but that job needs specific skills, for example, and they do not have the skills.
Yes.
How do you provide them with the skill to be able to then do the job that you want to employment on?
So that we can hire them.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a problem that many social enterprises face, and also social organizations in general. Hence why, generally speaking, social enterprises and not-for-profit organizations needs more capital, because you need to invest in human development a lot more than a typical commercially driven enterprise. In most commercially driven enterprise, if you can't do it, you're out. That's as easy as that. Hence, that's always finding the balance. How much do you spend on investing in that person's upskilling and so on and so on. And unfortunately, there was no black or white or right or wrong answer to it. And it's very much a
it is.
thing.
Like I was just going to say, it's actually very much case by case basis.
Yeah.
It's how much, given the limited resources, it's how much you can help this person, and then at a certain point you're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Can you do it or can't you do it? You know, I mean, we met with Sowist Nest, Noor, and we're talking about a sewing initiative with the refugee community, and but like exactly what you pointed out, it's going to be, we have contracts, we have a demand for the products, and we have these women here who can sew, the community who can sew, but it's connecting the dots, you know what I mean? Because if they can't hit the production deadlines, if they can't make the quantities, if the quality control is off, if they're not good enough, their skills are not good enough, they're not going to reach this, and this will go away. So it's, how do you train them? How do you run an efficient, professional production line? And it's all of that, working with that. And I think that's the beauty of like the social enterprise. I think now is a time when we're actually starting to figure all these things out and create structure to it. And it, like we were talking about, it's going to take time and effort, and it's very much hands-on, grassroots, get it done, blood, sweat, and tears, until a point where then it works. That's from my experience.
So you touched a little, so this is another question on the legal and illegal side, right? So obviously what you're doing is not easy.
It's grey. It's not black, it's not white, it's grey. Although I'm wearing black and white today, but it's grey.
What are some of the challenges that you face? And also, let's get real about it, because they come to raid your school, and you have to find all kinds of ways to avoid getting into trouble.
Well, I mean, first I say thank gosh for technology, because with technology so much is possible, like funding, awareness, collaborations, getting even refugees jobs, selling products, education, everything. Technology just makes everything so much easier, and it connects someone like me and the work I'm doing with people like you, and it just makes, I think that so much can be done in the private sector. I think, and not just within Malaysia, but regionally and globally, so much can be achieved. What was your question?
What are the challenges?
We are a non-profit. We run purely on donations, funding that comes in, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to touch refugee issues. They stay away because they don't understand it, because it's politically sensitive, because they think, as you said, all the misconceptions on what it is to be a refugee. So people go, oh, and there's one very famous Malaysian way of thinking is, you help your own people first, help your own kind. So then I say, okay, if you want me to help my own kind, where do I stop? Okay, Malaysian, let's break it down. Half Irish, half Malaysian, fathers like of Indian origin. Then what's the next level? Woman, how old am I, 30? Where does it stop? When you break it down, where do I draw the line? Then who do I help? I'll just help someone like me. I mean, we need to move beyond that very narrow-minded way of thinking, where it's always helping your own kind. It is so flawed, and that really makes my blood boil. But it's so flawed a way of thinking, and so we need to move beyond that. And so, companies, corporations, individuals, anybody really needs to go, well, look, there's a need here, and can I help solve this? And if I'm passionate about it, if this is something that I connect with, then get involved and do something. But certainly for us, funding is a huge issue. We're at a stage now where we're going, you know what, we're just going to look outside of Malaysia for support, because a lot of people here they're not going to take the risk. And I think with anything in life, you need to be willing to take the risk. If you just want to stay in the black zone or the white zone, life is good, great, whatever, but you're not going to do amazing things. You're not going to break barriers. You're not going to be the innovator. You're not going to be the revolutionary person. And I think even MaGIC is all about, in MaGIC it's about doing things that you don't normally do. MaGIC is about making the impossible happen, very much. And people like you, inspiring you, getting you motivated to do things that no one else has done. I mean, this collaboration, no one has done it before. The thing that you were talking about, you're doing things, you're connecting the dots. You're seeing a need and you're trying to help to fulfill that need. So I think it's opening our minds, it's opening our hearts. It's opening our doors to possibilities and seeing things without all of our preconceptions and all of our horrible kind of boxes that we've created in our lives.
Yeah. Okay, maybe let's take some questions from the floor. Who wants to? Yep.
Just one question about your Fugee School. Who are your teachers actually? Are they like employed or are they volunteers?
We do actually have a full teaching staff, and the only reason we have that is because volunteers, we love you, but you're not reliable. You know, we've tried, tested, failed. So we do have a full teaching staff, but we also add on with the volunteers. We work with Taylor's University, we work with Taylor's College, we work with other educational institutions, and they supplement on top. But yes, we have a full staff, a lot of people just part-time with us, and we also have this thing called the buddy system, where our older students, we get them to become student teachers. So we see the potential in them, we want to invest in them, we give them elements of training, teacher training, we pay them a little bit, and they come back in and teach the younger grades. And it's a great system because obviously they're mentoring, the younger students see them and they respect them, they see what they're doing, they get motivated to do more, to become more, and it's a wonderful, it's like an appetite, they've got an appetite for it, and it's growing, and we keep feeding it. And we find that to be a very effective cycle as well. But we're always looking for teachers. We're always looking for, like I say, there's many ways to donate. It's your skills is so important. So people who have skills, their time to come in and to help. You know, it's very easy to, like even for me, because I have on one side it's this, on one side it's this work, and it's very easy to lose touch with certain other realities. And the demand, you just see the magazines, you flip the magazine, and by the time you're done, you're like, I want this, and you want to be that. It's very aspirational. And yes, there are a lot of things, as you said, the photoshopping, the creating this idea and this image of telling women what they should want, what they should look like, what they should be. It's there, and that's media. That's an element of media and fashion. But I think on the flip side, there's so many opportunities where you see green fashion, you see conscious fashion, you see a lot of initiatives like this popping up, and I think that's what you're doing. You're seeing this opportunity and you're changing how people think, and that's really, I mean, maybe I'm just a little bit realistic in the sense we can't change everything, but what you're doing is a start. And you're right. There is overconsumption, and it's quite sickening. I'm guilty of it myself. Sometimes I wonder, what am I doing? My gosh, you buy things, you're contributing to this cycle, and it's very hard. But it's hard because we live in this. We live in this zone. If I were to leave everything and go live a very simple life on an island, detached from materialism, I could probably do that. And I wouldn't need anything. I wouldn't need to go to shops and buy stuff every week. But I don't. I live in this zone. So I can't wear the same dress to the event, and then they'll take a photo of me and they'll, oh look, she's wearing the same dress she wore last week. It sounds really frivolous, but it's true. It's true, and so I have to make that decision. I'm not going to wear the same dress I wore today to next week's event. So there's an unfortunate real side of that, but what I'm saying to you is that not everyone cares, but you care. And so you can provide people with a platform and opportunity to feed in to this cause. Fugee School is not an SC right now. We're very much a non-profit, and that is something that we're talking about. We had this conversation a few weeks ago, talking about how we make the move from a charity into a social enterprise. It's really not easy, and we're struggling as well to find, because it's not my decision, it's not something I'm going to do. I have to work with the community, and I have to find something that I want to do, that they want to do, a mutually beneficial and exciting project that we can work on, that will generate income so we can sustain ourselves. I've been to Lebanon and I visited the Syrian refugees on the border, and it is very deplorable, but countries like Jordan and Turkey are doing a huge amount for refugees. I mean, in Lebanon, over 1/4 of the Lebanese population is made up of refugees. They've allowed them in with open arms. I've seen the schools that the NGOs set up. They're pouring in. So it puts a strain on the economy, definitely. And so I would imagine for you, because you have the school there, it's at least for funding, it would be speaking to a lot of countries in the Middle East that can offer. But it's in a lot of aspects, it's very much also a network and your connections. It's looking at who you know, who you can ask, who you can look to for money. And I would encourage you to look outside of Malaysia. Grant writing, appeal writing to a lot of the countries that you see are playing a big role, and writing to them for funds. The transition, I think, I mean, you can say more on this, from profit, I mean, non-profit to an SE is a little bit, it doesn't happen overnight. No. It takes a long time, a lot of planning.
Yeah. So it's a question that we get a lot. And I always say that there's several things to consider to turn something into a social enterprise. Let's not talk about turning a not-for-profit into a social enterprise. Let's just talk about social enterprise. To make a social enterprise work, you need 3 elements. One is you need the driver has to have intrinsic motivation to really build this social enterprise. Secondly, you must have a good idea for a product or a service. And once you have that, you need the market. The market has to buy from the social enterprise, then the loop has to keep going for the social enterprise to grow, right? And you know, at MaGIC, I work with people from all kinds of, you know, from everywhere. And generally speaking, they have 1 or 2 of the 3 things, but not all 3 things. And unfortunately, you need all 3 things to make it work. As long as you have only 2 or even the 2 of them, it still will not work. You need to find all 3. So that is the big challenge, right? So to turn your not-for-profit into a social enterprise in the first place, you need all 3. The second challenge here of turning a not-for-profit or a typical charity into a social enterprise is that as a charity, you only have two jobs. One is to continue to raise money. I used to run a charity, that's how I know. And I'm on the board for Movember Foundation globally, where we raise hundreds of millions all around the world to fund men's health projects. There's 2 jobs. One is to raise fund, 2 is to create impact. Right? Every time your focus shifts to something else, one of these have to be sacrificed. Unless you can have the capital to employ a whole new team to look into how you transition into a social enterprise. And that is the challenge. So if you want to transition a charity or not-for-profit to a social enterprise, it's a huge investment, and it can be a distraction. And it's one of those things where it's either going to work or not work. But I highly encourage people to always work with a partner to turn something into a social enterprise if you really want to. It's definitely not impossible. We have seen it work. Yeah? We might take another 1 or 2 more questions. I know it's getting late. Any more questions? Anja?
What one advice would you give someone setting up something similar like what you do, and what one potential roadblocks that might stop them from continuing doing what you want to do?
So something like I'm doing as in a non-profit, passion allows for perseverance. It's the never-ending passion that personally that I have for this cause that has taken me and brought it to what it is today, which is over 6 years. You know, it's not easy. You're always raising funds. The moment you get funds in, you're raising more funds. You're growing, like you say. You're always looking at, is what I'm doing creating impact? Is what I'm doing serving the purpose that I intended to set out to do? And you have to love it. It has to be at the core of what you're doing. Sometimes all these things, social enterprise, non-profit, it seems very fancy. It seems very like this is the cool thing to do. Yeah, it is, but getting the job done is a lot of dedication. And I would always recommend you have to be on the ground. You need to understand what you're doing so well. It's like a business. Every aspect of it, you need to understand how it works. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart. And when it comes to just to talk about non-profit work, development work, one thing I learned when I was in university, my tutor said to me, projects fail not because there's lack of resources, meaning money, expertise, skills, manpower, know-how. All of that is there. All of that is dedicated to the project. They fail because of cross-cultural differences. I come in thinking you want this and you don't want it at all. I come in thinking, oh, I'm the savior here to help you and you're not wanting my help. So projects fail because of that. It's very important to understand, to have a two-way communication and to really sit down and to understand who you're working with. And I've experienced that firsthand, especially dealing with these cultures in our school that are very different to our culture. They think very differently. So understanding that has taken me years. Even till today, I still make mistakes. I still assume something, and then afterwards, when the damage is done, I'm like, oh, darn, how did I not see that? You know, so that's very important. But certainly, it's just a passion, dedication to the cause. And for me, it's when I see the students achieve things and do things, and I know the kids from like 5 years, so I see them, who they are today versus 5 years ago. Wow, that to me makes everything worth it. And I'm shameless when it comes to this. I'm not shameless for many other things when it comes to work, but I'm shameless when it comes to this. I do what I have to do almost. I mean, of course I've got integrity, but I have to put that in. But I do what I need to do to reach this end goal, you know?
So you touched on this a little bit. Do you want to maybe close tonight with a story or something? So tell us something. You know, this job is, I always say that doing not-for-profit job is a dirty job. Not dirty in the sense of like, you know, you get to the ground, get dirty, but it's tough, you know. I mean, I've been there. Sometimes you cry at night thinking, oh, where am I going to get the next paycheck from? Where am I going to get the next bit of money from? And you know that every time you stop working, the people that you work, it affects people's lives, you know. It's not just it's not like you work.
I can't just pack up and move country tomorrow.
Exactly, yeah. It's not like in a corporation, if I don't turn up to work for a day or a week, the system keep working. In a charity, I don't turn up for 1 day or 1 week, things fall apart. So it's tough. But tell us the rewarding part. Tell us a story that you know you hold dearly to.
You know, the first student that I worked with, the family that got me to start the school, one of the siblings, his name is Ahmed, and such a smart, bright guy. He's 19 years old now, and he was with us all through, right, since 2008. And my gosh, if you listen to him speak today, you'd be shocked. He speaks perfect English, so articulate. And he started off as a student in our school, and then he became a student teacher, one of the buddies. And then we went through a phase when we didn't have a principal. So I actually literally got this 18-year-old kid to become the head of school. Don't ask me why and how, but I did it. We were desperate. But it was tough, it was hard, you know, it was a bit of conflict, good stuff, bad stuff, but he persevered and he did amazing things and he learned so much. And I told you he was orphaned when he came to Malaysia. He came with his grandmother, and the grandmother died 2 years after they arrived in Malaysia. Imagine, orphaned in this country. And earlier this year, you know, he thought his parents had died. Earlier this year, somehow, he finds out that his mother is alive. And his mother was remarried and living in London.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, this changed the whole dynamics of their lives. They were, from having no mom, now they have a mom who's a citizen of Britain. It opens so many doors for them. And so at the same time, he also decided that he was going to get engaged to a very beautiful Somali girl who's living in Australia. Very young, so I was like, Ahmed, are you sure? You should study. You know me, I'm like become the mother. But he got engaged to the girl. She lives in Brisbane, and he said, I'm going to go back to Somalia. I want to pursue my education. I want to do international business. I'm going to go back to Somalia. My mother has some businesses there. I want to see it. And after that, my uncle has sponsored my education to study in Turkey.
Wow.
So he left to Somalia a couple of months ago, and I've been in touch with him since. And the devastation, this kid, he's Somali, but he's Malaysian. And the shock and horror he's seen going back to Somalia, the poverty, the way things work there, the country. He talks to me on the phone, he's like, you know, yesterday, this was during Ramadan, he goes, yesterday during Iftar, there were bombings going off. Imagine, you know, and he's this 19-year-old kid who's like, just absolutely going through like craziness, experiencing all of this. And he said to me, I've decided that I don't want to do international business, I want to do international human rights. And I've been helping him now like with fundraisers, and I see all these children living on the streets. I want to help them. How can I fundraise? How do I do it? So I've been having this communication with him. And I've said, Ahmed, you can help, but go to university, go to Turkey. You can help in many different ways. So don't limit yourself. But this is a kid who, I think, just imagine had he not, my dream, I lie in bed at night and I think, in 5 years' time, where is this person going to be? I do that. Yeah. It's exciting. I can't wait in 10 years to see what these children become. And this kid who less than 8 years ago couldn't even write his name properly, and look what he is today. He's so, this strength, this empowerment. He's 18 years old. His education level is not of an 18-year-old. It's many years below. But it doesn't matter, because look at him and the impact that he's sowing into the rest of the world. And that to me is the beacon of hope. That to me makes me like, yes, the next generation, there is hope. And you know, it's a very beautiful thing to see that. Just another little story, when the kids came to me, I gave them little pieces of paper 6 years ago, and I gave them coloring pencils. You know what our parents do with us? And put us on the floor and they say, color, draw. And I did that to them. And they could not even put pen to paper. They could not draw. I said, draw a sun, draw your house, draw flowers. They could not nothing was on the paper. The pages were blank. Their imagination was dead. There was nothing going on. These were children who were so shut off because of their lives, what they'd gone through. And just to fast forward 6 years later, here, you have kids who, I want to be this, I want to be that. Speak to them, ask them their opinions on things. They're talking, they're speaking. They think about the future, they have hope, they have ambition. You know, it melts my heart when I hear someone say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a fashion designer, I love it. And then the next day they change the ambition, and I love it again. I'm like, yes, you know, keep dreaming, keep like, yes. And I just pray to God that opportunity comes their way, that enables them to at least try to achieve some of the things that they have. And everyone plays a role. One person can really make a huge difference. Never underestimate the impact and the ripple effect of what that has.
Yeah. So to end the night, do you want to share some wise words? What are some of the things that people should think about as they venture into the social sector? Or while they're in the social sector, what are some of the things to be aware of? And also maybe tell us a little bit about how we can get involved and support Fugee School as well.
It's called the Golden Rule, and it's very simple. I think all of our religions have it. I mean, not to complicate things, but all of our religions, if you have a faith or if you don't, every book has this in it. The Golden Rule, which basically says, put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yes.
And we all know it. It's not something new to us, but really to put that into practice. That's been my challenge I gave to myself in the past few months, to really put myself into that, and in every aspect of your life, to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to see things from their perspective, and that can have just an incredible impact in whatever you do, and in any path that you choose.
Yeah.
Certainly that. And then in terms of Fugee School, our website is www.fugeeschool, which is FUGEE school.com. All our details are there. You can email us, and if you want to get in touch to talk about anything exciting that you're doing that you'd like to partner with us on. Yeah.
Always need money, of course.
Always need money.
Great, thank you so much, Deborah. So I think the last few sentences you said, it gives them hope, and that really resonates.
I think, like I say, when you put yourself in someone's shoes, imagine you not knowing where you're going to be tomorrow. Imagine an identity crisis where you don't even know who you are. And that's what it is. It's hope is such a valuable thing to give someone.
Yeah, and there's I don't know if they've taken it down. In Australia, I lived in Australia for 10 years, so I keep saying about Australia stuff, and my team always give me a lot of crap about it. Australia went through a xenophobic period on refugee issues. So xenophobia means people scared of things that are known to them. And you know, people make all sorts of really racist comments. Government were making policies that don't make sense to really put refugees at a really bad light as well. So a company who I know this guy really well, they make some of the best reality TV shows in Australia, which is my guilty pleasure. I just admitted something that I should be ashamed about.
Hopefully it's not the Kardashians.
No, definitely not. They make a reality TV show on they call it Go Back to Where You Came From.
Yeah.
And they take, in the first series, they take 6 people from varying degrees of opinions on refugees. From people who are really against it. There's this lady who's just like, if I see a refugee, I'm going to shoot him in the head with my gun. All the way to people who's like, oh, I love refugees, you know, give me more refugees, and you know, I want to let them move into my house, and the more hippie side. And they bring them on a journey to backwards on these refugees. So they bring them to their house in Sydney and Melbourne. They brought them to Darwin. They came to Kuala Lumpur actually.
They actually came to our school.
Oh, no way. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they came to Malaysia, and then they went to Jordan. Some went to Jordan, and then they went all the way back. Some of them went all the way back to where the war zone is. And that was the shocking thing. And for a lot of these people, you know, like you said, they live without knowing what's in it for them tomorrow. And when you have been through a situation where you don't know what's next for you, it's difficult to explain. My best friend died when I was 16. I went through 9 months of depression where I questioned, why do I live? If we all live to die, what's the point of living? And when you live without hope, that's one of the darkest things you can ever go through. And I think that as human beings, coming out of that 9 months, I was very lucky that I got out of that 9 months period. The best gift you can give anyone is that gift of hope. So I want to thank you on behalf of all humans for the job that you do.
We love humans.
For giving hope to a lot of these children. I'm sure that they're your children now as well.
Yes, I actually today I felt when I was with them, I was like, I'm beaming with pride and joy. And I'm like, is this how you feel when you have children? But I had like 100. Yay.
Yeah. So thank you for the work
Thank
you
you.
do. Thank you for spending the evening with us. I'm sure a lot of you guys took a lot out of tonight.
Thank you. I hope at least something of what I said resonates and changes your path.
Yeah. So join me in thanking Deborah, please, guys. Thank you.